to stay away. What the Muslims didn't understand was
they were davening.
They were davening sleepless in the morning.
Right.
And that's why.
There were a lot of religious Jews who were late for work that day.
Well, I davened at the Wall Street Synagogue that was 6 blocks from there. I didn't daven there but the story there is someone came that day and they had to say Kaddish, so they asked to lead services, and they were very slow in leading services. So the davening ended a half hour later than normal, and that's why they didn't make people who davened and worked at the trade center didn't know.
Someone just put out a book of all these miraculous stories, you know.
Wall Street Synagogue, there are 2 brothers who went who were the rabbis there for 50 years. 2 older brothers.
There were stories of men, grown men, who called their rabbis, and they said, I want to divorce my wife because if they were killed and the bodies weren't found, their wives should not be
and they're going there. I mean, they were in the building and they called their wives. They called their rabbis too.
If they survive.
Right.
But to have
what year was it?
I'm sorry?
What year was it?
2001.
2001. لما خير الرياي لما خير الرياي أدبرنا شالاي باق لما خير الرياي لمن خير الرياي أدبرنا شالاي باق لمن بيس شمل كين وفاكشة ويبلغ لمن بيس شمل كين وفاكشة ويبلغ Dai dai di dai dam di di dai dai di dai dai da da dai 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 di doi do di dam bam bam bim bam 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 di dai 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 di dai dam di dai 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 da da dai dai dai, di dai dai da, di da 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 di dai da, di 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 dai 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 di dai do, di di da 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 di dai da 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 di dai dai, di dai do. Page 79. Leil Rosh Hashanah Eitzel HaRabbi Milubavitch. Rosh Hashanah night by the Lubavitch Rebbe. He's talking about the second last Rebbe, whom we refer to as the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe. And that's how we refer to him, all those years that the last Rebbe was alive. So he says, אני מוכרח לספר לכם על הרבי מלובביץ' הקודם, I must tell you about the Friedrich Rebbe. קודם כל, first of all, ביום הראשון של ראש השנה, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, הוא לא היה מדבר בכלל, he didn't speak at all. לא ביידיש ולא באנגלית, אפילו לא בלשון הקודש, הוא פשוט לא דיבר חוץ מהברכות בלילה, besides giving blessings in the evenings as the Rosh Hashanah night as we give to one another. Besides that, he did not speak at all the entire first day of Rosh Hashanah. מה שזכיתי לראות בעיניי, and what I had the good fortune to see with my own eyes, the Ma'ariv של Rosh Hashanah, the evening prayer of Rosh Hashanah, זה היה ממש עד לב השמיים. It was like reaching up to the heart of the heavens. אם התפילה התחילה ב8, if the davening, let's say, started at 8 o'clock at night, היא הסתיימה בערך ב2 בלילה. It lasted till approximately 2 in the morning. והבכיות and the crying, the cries לא היו רק מפעם לפעם, they weren't just intermittent, אלא בחייה אחת ארוכה במשך 6 שעות. He just cried non-stop for 6 hours. הרבי ממש חשב על כל יהודי החי בדורנו. He ממש was thinking about every Jewish person alive in our generation. ואולי לא רק בדורנו, maybe not even only in our own generation. מי יודע כמה אלפי נשמות הוא תיקן באותו לילה. Who knows how many thousands of souls he was fixing on that night. ואני זוכר אותו אחרי התפילה. And I remember him, what he looked like after the davening was over. אני אומר לכם, I'm telling you, הפנים שלו היו מאירות כמו הפנים של משה רבנו כשירד מהר סיני. To me, it looked like his face was shining like Moshe Rabbeinu's face was shining when he came down from Mount Sinai. איך ובאיזו שמחה הוא אמר הגודיו. It was just amazing when he said, wishing everyone a good year. He said it with so much joy. Shana tova l'chol achad shenichnas elav. Everyone who came in to greet him, he mamish wished them with a shining face, a good year. B'chol shana v'shana, page 80. B'chol shana mechadash, and every year he would once again haya Rabbi mazir otanu. He would instruct us. He would caution us. שמוכרחים לשמור על הדיבור בראש השנה, that we're obligated, we have to be very careful with our speech on Rosh Hashanah. לא לדבר חס ושלום על שום יהודי בעולם, to make sure not to say anything, God forbid, not to say anything against any Jew in the world. לא לספר שום דבר לא טוב, don't relate anything that is not good. Why? מפני שבראש השנה העולם ממש מתחדש, הכל חדש. Because Rosh Hashanah, the world is being renewed, everything is new. כשאדם קונה חולצה חדשה למשל, when a person buys a new shirt, for example, מה הכי מכאיב? What bothers you the most? הכתם הראשון, נכון? The first stain is what bothers you the most. הכתם השני כבר לא כל כך מפריע. The second stain doesn't bother you as much. כך בראש השנה. Likewise in Rosh Hashanah, כשאתה נעשה אדם חדש, when you become a new person, אתה מוכרח לשמור על הנקיות הזאת. You have to guard that clarity, that cleanliness. ולא להתחיל שוב עם דיבורים לא טובים. And don't start again with talking things that are not good. Right? So it's the idea over here is pretty clear. It's way more than just marking a date on the calendar. You know? It's way more than putting another notch in the wall. It's literally a new beginning, and it must be treated as such. And in the same way, and this is like it's just a parable, but in the same way, when you buy a new suit, a new shirt, a new this, a new that, right, or a new car, the first scratch is what bothers you the most, right? So we're new people. We're being renewed on Rosh Hashanah. You're being renewed on Rosh Hashanah. Everything is new. Watch it. Be careful. Make sure that you don't blemish it by saying something negative about somebody else. Very good. Very good. Right? You remember the story with the Chafetz Chaim about talking Lashon Hara against yourself. You know that you're not allowed to talk Lashon Hara against yourself either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which means you shouldn't say, I can't do this. You just want to say, I can do this with God's help.
All right. Yeah.
But I was interested to learn that you must be cautious about praise as well. Because to praise somebody somehow limits. You're not saying something else, or somehow limiting.
In other words, it can be that way, right? You have to be cautious even with praise. And also, if you're going to praise someone, let's say you're going to praise Harry to Frank, and you know that Frank doesn't like Harry. So, and the chances are that when you're going to tell Frank how good Harry is, Frank is going to say, "Oh yeah, let me tell you something else about him," right? So you shouldn't do that either.
On this subject.
Yeah.
How does one counteract that? What has been happening to me these past while is I'm remembering the way certain people have treated me in shul, for instance. Usually it's just like back and forth, but it's coming back. Even when I'm going to sleep, it comes back. And I remember the learning here, one way is to say, loud, stop, I don't want to hear it. And I say that. It keeps coming back.
It's not just stop, I don't want to hear it. Rav Nachman says, the question that you're asking is, how do you control thoughts that you don't want to be thinking, right? So in general, Rav Nachman says the brain is like a horse. Whichever way you pull the reins, that's the way the horse goes. So the brain can only be thinking about one thing at a time. Okay?
Right.
So when you have a thought coming into your mind that you don't want to be thinking about, just literally pull the reins, so to speak, and think about something else. Okay. Then there's another aspect too. So the fact that certain thoughts keep on coming up usually indicates that there's something unresolved. Okay. So if you need those tissues in the bathroom,
Okay. Where's the bathroom?
Right by the stairs. So
The first door on your right.
but no, here in the house by the stairs, no? Right here.
Right there. Think about something else.
No, please, but besides thinking about something else, that'll prevent you thinking the negative thoughts right now. But if there's still an unresolved issue, okay, somebody offended you, you're upset with them, so it needs to be resolved. So there are different ways to resolve it. So one of them is to think about, for example, Barney said something to me or he didn't treat me nicely in shul, and it's really, really bothering me. Okay? Why is it bothering me so much? For whatever reason. But the fact that it's bothering me so much is partly that I'm allowing it to bother me. Right? Now, let's say that this Mr. Barney, if he said something not nice, what if a little kid in grade 1 would have said the same thing? You would ignore it, right? You would say, well, but obviously you're giving Barney a lot of credit. You're giving him a lot of stature in your life. And when Barney says something like that, it hurts me. Well, one thing that you could do is you can sort of say, you know what, Barney? I am taking away your authority to hurt me. I am no longer giving you the authority to hurt me. And this is a lesson that I learned in the previous life, okay, so to speak, okay. There was a person who was hurting me a lot, okay, and would make big fights with me. And this went on until I learned this lesson that how much they hurt me is my decision. Okay? If they are hurting me, it's because I'm allowing them to hurt me, one way or another. And remember, we spoke about judo, right? If the enemy, if the opponent's energy is coming against you, and you try to block it, you're going to get hurt, right? If the opponent's energy is coming and instead of blocking it, you use it, right? So then you're now you're in charge, okay? So it was Shabbos afternoon. I went for a walk in the country. It was summertime, and I'd taken a walk through the woods, and I was pretty good at not getting lost in the woods. But it was already getting dark, and I knew that if I go back through the woods, I might not be able to find my way. So I went down to the road, and it was like a much longer journey back home. And as I was getting closer to the cottage, all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, there's this big estate that I was going to have to walk by. And they always had 2 big guard dogs there. Okay? And I used to be scared of dogs. It was too late to go back into the forest. And I knew that as soon as I'm going to be within 5 feet of that fence, they're going to come after me. Okay? That was their job. So I had this dilemma, what am I going to do now? So I stopped for a moment and I said, you know what? These animals don't have any right to hurt me. Period. Nobody gave them the right to hurt me. So they can come and bark, they can come and smell me, but oy vavoy if they dare to try to hurt me. I'm not going to allow that to happen. And I made the decision. And sure enough, as I come around the bend, right down to their property, they come charging down the hill, ferocious, and I just stood there and they said, you can smell me, you can bark, but don't you dare touch me. You know what the dogs did? They froze on the spot.
They didn't smell the fear.
They froze. Not only that, they smelled that they better be afraid of me. They froze on the spot, and it was like a half a mile long, that whole estate. They followed me the entire way. Every few feet of it, just turn around, look at them, they'd stop. Okay? And I realized all this time that I was afraid of those dogs is because I allowed it. Okay? So then I went ahead and I transferred that in relation to this person who was always making me tzuras. And I decided, you no longer have the right to hurt me. And that person tried 2 more times and realized that they were no longer getting the same reaction, and it stopped. They stopped bothering to pick a fight with me. Okay? So one thing that you could do is you can say, this person, the way they treated me bothers me, but I'm making a decision. I'm disarming them. They no longer have that power over me to make me upset. And it's kind of sich stellen auf den Kopf. Speak Yiddish?
No.
Why not? They can stand on their head, they're not going to bother me. Why not? Because I've decided that to take their authority away, their authority to hurt me. Okay? Now, so that's another thing, right? So we talked about one is that Rav Nachman says that the brain is like a horse, whichever, like you can only be thinking about one thing at a time, whichever way you pull the reins, that's where it's going to go. You can control what you're thinking about. Second was disarm the person, the authority, take away the authority from the person who is hurting you. And thirdly, the p.7 says like this. Let's say somebody really hurt you, and you're really angry, you're really upset. And it's not the kind of person that you can just go over to and say, hey, I want to have a discussion with you, I want to talk about what happened. Right? For one reason or another, you're worried that it's just gonna make it worse or whatever it is, right? But in the meantime, you've got all this anger. You've got all this anger, and it's it's really upsetting, right? If one stool isn't enough, you can take 2 stools.
I don't like my feet.
Oh, I thought you were. That's okay. That doesn't bother me. Okay, when you're sitting facing me, your toes are pointing at me also. Anyway, so the p.7 says, like, sometimes like there's these people, like, if you say, hey, why did you do this to me, right? And instead of getting an apology, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get an even bigger argument, and another put down, right? So he gives the following advice. He says, go to your room, or in your house, whatever, and write a letter to this person expressing exactly how you feel, with all the adjectives you want to put in. And really express it. Then stand in front of a chair, put a pillow on the chair, imagine that the person you wrote the letter to is sitting in the chair, and read the letter with all the emotions that you have about it. And say, like, you're disgusting how you treat me. I can't stand what you're doing. You've done this and that and that and that. And read it once, and read it again, and over a couple of days, and you will find that the anger has dissipated. Okay? So,
I do a similar thing. I write letters and I don't send them.
no, he said, don't give it to this person. Exactly.
No.
I'm saying, in agreement with what you're saying, don't give the letter to the person, right?
In fact, when I'm writing the letter, I know I'm not good. It's not.
Yeah, he knows. He says, don't. He said, see, the thing is like this. You've got this anger pent up and building up inside of you, right? To deliver it to the person that you're upset with is going to exacerbate it. It's going to make things worse.
It's going to invite a response.
Right? It's going to invite a response. It's going to make a bigger argument. But you don't want to muck around with that keg of filth inside of you, right? So get it out. You understand? Get it out. So there's discussion of that, like, are you a Monday night football fan?
A what?
A Monday night football fan?
I used to be.
Right, so there's some psychologists talk about, like, like that's the way that men get their aggression out, through different, like, with sports and things like that. So I don't know that much about it, but the idea is that if you don't get it out, if you don't deal with it one way or the other, then it could be that Harry offended you. Then you came into class here today, and Mayor said something about, oh, he didn't like your shirt that much, right? And you start screaming at Mayor. But why are you screaming at Mayor? All he did was he said something about your shirt. But what you're doing is you're taking all the anger that you have towards Harry, and it's spilling onto Mayor.
They say that in English. You have a bad day at the office, you come home and you kick the cat.
The cat, right? The cat.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So I couldn't I figure that out? It was so easy.
There's an expression. The prisoner can't get out of prison by himself. We all need each other to help. We all need to help one another get out. Because when I'm in prison, I'm also in prison, and there are times when all this knowledge is, you just get stuck, and you need somebody to come along and just sort of extend the hand.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
With what?
With what you just said.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only one that can get me out of prison.
Yeah, but this.
With love and help, I appreciate that.
Right,
it's all a good thing.
Sometimes,
ultimately, it's about me.
That's definitely true. Yeah, I'm totally agreeing with what you just said. That's the most important thing in life, is to say, I'm taking responsibility for whatever I'm doing. And if I'm going to be stuck here in prison, I'm responsible. If I'm going to get out, I'm responsible. But sometimes you just get into like a little downswing of sorts, that you just forget that all that knowledge dissipates. This actually relates to another teaching. God tests us, right? Or like the way our friend over here said that the p.7 put it yesterday.
Yeah.
God is like your coach,
yeah.
Right? Well, God, did you hear that? God is your coach. He's training us. Okay. Now, and the training involves all kinds of situations, including some of which are quite difficult, right? Now, if God wants to test my faith, right? If God wants to test me, what am I going to be like in a difficult situation, right? One of the things that is done in order for it to be a real test is that my higher consciousness is taken away. You see, when you are in possession of your higher consciousness, so the little things are not going to drive you crazy. Right? I gave this example already a number of times. I was at a wedding here years ago. Girl and the boy were from the States, and Baal Tshuva kids. And at the chuppah, when they were giving the khaled, when they were giving the bride some wine, a little drop of red wine spilled on her dress. Okay. From that moment on, throughout the rest of the evening, her father no longer enjoyed the wedding. And I saw with my eyes, every time he looked at her, what was he looking at? Was the stain. Okay? Now, which means that he didn't have any of the higher consciousness. He could have been thinking about, awesome, I raised my daughter, gave her an education, and Baruch Hashem, she's marrying a good guy, and she's happy, and this is her wedding, and being in that higher consciousness. And instead of being in that higher consciousness, he's looking at a stain, a little stain, right? So now, if you would go over to that guy and you'd say, "Hey, Mister, can't you get yourself into a state of higher consciousness?" You're right, Mayor. He's responsible for doing it or for not doing it. But you know what? Sometimes you just need a friend to remind you to shift your perspective. Page 81. Okay, so you see, by the way, I should point this out. You know what entropy is? You know? Entropy. You know what entropy is?
Entropy?
E-N-T-R-O-P-Y.
Yeah, you can't use it.
Things break down. It's the law. They talk about it as the law of entropy, right? The law of entropy that things break down, right? This world is under the law of entropy, right? There ain't no such thing that you can acquire in this physical world that isn't going to break down, right? The body is going to break down. Everything breaks down, right? And that's why people are always looking for something new and improved, etc., right? The idea that Rosh Hashanah is a totally new beginning is contradicting the law of entropy. You understand? The law of entropy says that back in 1955, my grade 1 teacher did this terrible thing to me, and she destroyed a part of my soul. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Right? Rosh Hashanah says, you're a new person. It's a new world. It's a new life. You don't have to live in that old shadow. Okay? So that's very, very important. And and then it's not just about seeing our own selves as being new and being renewed, but also seeing other people as being new and being renewed. Right? So if you say something negative about anybody on Rosh Hashanah, what you're basically saying is, God forbid, I don't believe in renewal. I don't believe that this person is ever going to change. I don't believe that it's possible. Whatever way you want to put it. Understand? And that's the and even like you said before, Michal, even if you're talking about yourself. Okay. Page 81. Lachshov v'lahamin rak tov. To think positive and to believe in positive. Rabbi Nachman Omer, Nachman says, לא רק שאסור לדבר דברים לא טובים בראש השנה, not only is it forbidden to speak bad things in Rosh Hashanah, לא פחות מזה, no less than that, ואולי אף יותר, maybe even more so, צריכים להישמר ממחשבות לא טובה. You also have to be very careful not to have negative thoughts on Rosh Hashanah. כי ראש השנה הוא ממש הראש של השנה. Because Rosh Hashanah is literally the head of the new year. ולכן צריך לשמור את הראש ממחשבות לא טובות. So therefore you have to guard your head. And the word Rosh means two things, right? Rosh Hashanah, what does the word Rosh mean? The beginning of the year. What is this over here on my shoulders? This is my Rosh, it's my head, right? So he's saying that there's an interplay over here, okay? So Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. It's the head of the year. It's your head, the head of the new year of your head, so to speak. And the way you're thinking on Rosh Hashanah is setting the tone for the way you're going to be thinking during this year. Okay? So one of the things to meditate on today, tomorrow, sometime between now and Rosh Hashanah, is to think about how do I want to think? How do I want to think? What attitude do I want to take about things in life and so on? And implement that in particular on Rosh Hashanah.
Rabbi, or last time was saying in Rosh Hashanah, we should think good thoughts of the potential what can be, and that turns judgment into compassion.
Say again, please.
That if you think good thoughts on Rosh Hashanah of the potential of what it can be, it turns the day of judgment into compassion.
Into compassion, yeah.
So
Which is, by the way, think about that for a second. That's in different words. That's basically the definition of tshuva. Tshuva, the way Rav Nachman puts it, is that the Baal Tshuva is basically saying, "Ano zamin lemeheve." I am ready to become more than I am right now. I am ready to be better. I am ready to be the higher person that I have not yet been. Okay, so that's the same. Those are the exact words that you just said. That when you think about the potential, right, it goes from judgment to compassion.
What was the one you just said?
In Aramaic, Ana, read it in English letters. Ana, Aleph and Aleph means I. Zamin, like from the word Zman, I am ready. The Meheve, to become. Le Meheve. I'm ready to be. I'm ready to become. When my friend turned 50, I got her a T-shirt, and I had printed on the T-shirt, a sweatshirt, and printed on it, "Beware of AKS."
AKS.
Alta-Cocker
Syndrome. He wouldn't wear it. But it's a good one. Beware of AKS. You see? The Brachman said, Alt Torminish Zan. You're not allowed to be old. And he thinks I'm joking. I tell people that the Chol is the youngest student in our yeshiva.
Oh.
Because he's positive. He believes, like the Gemara says, if you think that tomorrow could be better than today, you're not old. Bis 120. Oh, mine.
If my colleagues are considerably younger than me, so I relate to them.
Yeah.
This fellow does styling. He comes out with the wildest of their words.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You should invest in him. He's going to be president of the U.S.
But he's the wrong color.
That's for sure.
He's the wrong color.
You're online.
Turned around.
I often say in a joke, but I'm serious on this. I say this to this. I got to live forever. Because there's so much to learn. I don't know if I can learn it all in one lifetime.
Yeah.
You think you reach a certain age. If you haven't heard or seen it, all right, it's shkatera. I'm suffering every day.
He loves to learn this, man. For Hashem.
It's very open.
Because I'm good at it. I talk to these young people, most are married children. It's a lot, and I get close to the men and women. I said, why don't you become Orthodox? They don't have the same answer, but they express it differently. we want something spiritual. So if I'm really friendly with them, I said, well, why did you choose orthodoxy? Why did you choose a reform? Or conservative? It's closer to, we don't have the same answer. They want authentic Judaism. Now, I was born into this, and I never thought of Yiddishkeit as authentic. I've never thought of it that way.
The big question is, like, I have a friend in Colorado, and he's a righteous convert, and he's telling me about, when he was up in front of the Besdin, in front of the Jewish court for conversion. So they asked him, like, why do you want to convert, and so on and so on. And he gave them his reasons, and then he said to the rabbis, I want to ask you a question. If you would have been born non-Jewish, would you convert? And he turns to me and he asks me that question. You ever think about it? I told him. My answer was, I said, I cannot give you any honest answer whatsoever. How am I supposed to know? If my grandmother would be wearing army boots, she would be a soldier, right? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, there are different, everybody has their own life circumstances and so on. The whole thing about people who do sincere conversions is a very mystical thing. Why this person? Why not his brother? Why not her sister? Why this one? Why that one? There's so many things that you don't know about it. Okay, it's a very esoteric type of thing. But the real point of my mentioning this is, it's all about, do you believe in tshuva? Do you believe you can live a better life? Right? Do you believe that you can make a better life for yourself? And there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that have a very shallow definition of what a better life is. But to make a real big change in their lives, to really change in significant ways, they don't believe in that. I brought a couple of hippie type of guys with me into a Hasidic shul one day, and one of the people who knew me there says, "Are these guys Bali Tshuva?" So I said to him, what makes you think that if they're going to do tshuva, that they have to look like you? Maybe you should look like them. That's why I'm big. I said, maybe you should do tshuva and be like them, So then he tells me, he says, I would never let my daughter marry a Baal tshuva. Tell me this. I said, why not? He says, because he doesn't trust him. I said, what do you mean you don't trust him? He says, I don't believe a person can change. Now, it does happen very often that people who are Bali Tshuva, sometimes after a year, sometimes after 5 years, sometimes after 10 years, they go back to their old lifestyle. It happens. It's true. But that's true for everybody. It's true for somebody born religious also. You can change again. So I said to him, so you're telling me that if you would have been born unreligious, you would never do tshuva? He says, that's right.
Narrow perspective, anyway.
Very narrow. But something? I think the majority of people are like that. And Rav Steinsaltz writes about this issue. I remember when I was in yeshiva, there was he's my age obviously, but in Toronto there was a guy. His last name was Robinson. He's a rabbi today. He's published Sforim. He used to go to public high school, and he would come at the end of the day to the yeshiva to learn. And when he decided leave the secular world, like not to go to university right away and to come and study in yeshiva. His parents legally disowned him. They disowned him. They plain and simple filed court papers about however you do that. They said you're turning 18. Goodbye. And why? So the question is why. But he wasn't becoming a gangster, right? He was going to yeshiva. So why? And it's threatening to them. It's like, oh, what we did for you isn't good enough, right? And very often, Bali Tshuva have to find a whole new set of friends, because your old friends, again, like, are you thinking that you're better than we are? Is our lifestyle not good enough for you, etc., etc. It's very threatening in that way. And it's very interesting. When I was teaching
Was it triggers
in their own insecurities.
Great, like, why, maybe I should be doing this.
Maybe I should be doing it also, right? And that when I was back in Montreal, when I was teaching elementary school, so I was teaching in a community which was well-to-do, upper middle class, and so I met the parents of these different kids, and one of them, at this particular point, was now he had developed a chain of shoe stores without mentioning names, and he had a big chain of shoe stores, and he started out by renting space in a store, in some other store, and selling shoes. Okay, and from that it developed into a chain that's going strong to this day. Okay, she told me an interesting thing. He says once he was successful, he had to change. He had to find a whole new set of friends, because his older friends, his old friends, hey, they'd call him up and they say, "Hey, Jack, I need to get some shoes," and he'd say, "Yeah, we'll give you a good price or whatever." They'd come in and they'd buy a few pair of shoes, but they wouldn't pay. And then when he tried to collect the money, they'd say, "What? You want me to pay for it?" Like, their jealousy was that, you're such a rich guy now, and you're my friend, you're going to charge me for the shoes?
This is true for alcoholics and drug addicts as well.
Yeah.
So
that's right. They need to have a new set of friends, right?
And you can't relate to your saying.
Right.
I went through that too.
This is very emotional. I had a very difficult time, so I choked with. With my son and daughter-in-law, I go back.
This summer, when you went back.
Don't push your orthodoxy.
They couldn't accept you changing.
Almost just
Sometimes it takes time. They'll don't give up your hope. There was a guy in Toronto. His first name was Boomy.
Boomy Goldreich.
I don't know the last name, but
He made out young.
no, not Goldreich. And he had become a student, and you got to hear this. He had become a student in the Baruch Yeshiva. He became a chassid. This guy was fire. A great mind, and a great masmid. Like, masmid means he just wouldn't waste a second trying learning. Okay? His father, who was a Holocaust survivor, was mad like hell. I saw this with my own eyes. He was mad like hell. Do you remember where the shul was there on Bathurst, the Lubavitcher shul, Bathurst in Edinburgh?
No. Yeah. It's still there.
Yeah. I was there one Shabbos. His father would come to shul screaming, cursing at everybody, cursing his son, cursing the community. What have you done to my son? And how did you ruined him? This and that and that and that. Yeah. This went on for years. I don't know how it got resolved, but one day I come into the shul and I see this guy is wearing the talis and he's wearing tefillin, and he's gotten into it. I don't know whether it was that his son managed to get him to come and visit the Rebbe, whatever it was. But one thing I got to tell you, Ephraim Mordechai, if you have a choice between what you're facing right now versus polite lip service, this is better. Because this is they're telling you their honest truth, okay? Regardless of what's actually of the issue, okay? You're dealing with somebody who's telling you exactly how they feel, okay? If they would say, "Oh, yeah, go ahead," but like ha ha ha, type of thing, then you can't deal with it, okay? So your honesty is clashing with their honesty, and eventually they're going to see. You understand? When it's honest, the truth will eventually come through. Okay, but if I'm going and doing something and you say to me, "Oh, it's okay, you can do whatever you want, Shlomo," like I don't really, which basically means I don't really give a damn. You understand?
Yeah, I mean, I was very young. I wasn't. And my daughter-in-law apologized because I almost left. Because it was just that awful. But she said, I'm glad you visited. You're welcome here. Just don't push your orthodoxy and don't let it nice addiction. And I could have said, okay, and she apologized for her immaturity. And I could have just said, thank you for your apology. I said, the only thing I said was, it's very meaningful for me to tell a kid this on Shabbos. And I asked you to do this for me. Just that, doesn't mean something. And people said I shouldn't have done that.
No, look. You did it honestly, whether I don't know your family members or whatever it is. There are times when that it's like the same thing we were talking about before. Like if you go to Frank and you say, "Hey, I want to tell you something nice about Harry," and that Frank can't stand Harry, that Frank is going to respond by saying, "Oh yeah, he's a nice guy. Let me tell you what he did." There are times that the people have certain sensitivities, and you just touch it, and they sort of they start getting upset, right? But what you did was honest, and whether you should have or whether you shouldn't have, it was honest. Okay. And I remember I told you the story the other day when I was bar mitzvah. We used to spend our summer suns. We would rent these little country houses, and we needed a minyan, and just the shul was like in a neighborhood of Jews, and Mr. Feligal of Shlomo went over to this 15-year-old boy or whatever, and he said, "Can you please come into the shul? We need a minyan." And his mother saw that, and she comes running out, "Don't you dare go into that synagogue. He's going to make you religious. Watch out." Like it's the worst thing that you can do to a kid, you know. But it was that time of history, like, you know, it was like the early '60s. People had these weird ideas about, you know, how to raise their children, about life and this and that. So,
See how that worked out.
huh?
You can see how that worked out.
Yeah. So what I want to say to you is, do Reb Nachman, always think positive thoughts, focus on the positive in them, and send them blessings. A couple of years ago, Michal is my witness. There was a lady sitting here from Toronto, right? And we were learning Reb Nachman about focusing on the positive, and we were learning that you can even do it from a long distance, from overseas. And she was saying that how she's having big issues with somebody in her family. And I said, think positive about them and send blessings. That's Reb Nachman's teachings. And I said, don't be surprised if in the next 24 hours they get in touch with you. 6:00 at night, she phones me. She says, I'm sorry for disturbing, but I got to tell you this. I got a phone call I did what you said, and they phoned me, and we had a good conversation.
I mean, my son is actually, this is more to his wife.
Yeah.
And he keeps